fine. It was like it's fine.
I don't mean
it just happened. It just happened that way.
Michael Wilbon
Happy to be here with both of you.
JWill
know that.
You know that.
Brian Windhorst is up with us early this morning from OKC and much more. We are Get Up. We're live above the Heineken River Deck at Pier 17, and it begins with the performance of the night last night in OKC. It was SGA, the MVP. And then, Jay, he immediately started showing everyone exactly why he won and deserved that award.
He's just so methodical in how he gets to his spots on the court. Just a half-court surgeon when it comes to playing basketball.
Michael Wilbon, that's the word we use, surgical, for SGA.
Well, it's surgical and it's also throwback. I'm tired of people talking about he's foul hunting. What?
Right.
He's not just hanging around the arc for easier shots physically. He is going and confronting people a lot bigger than him on what, JWill, 80% of the possessions?
It's ridiculous.
His three-point shooting has declined over the last few years. He's been fabulous.
What you saw there, a little bit of Anthony Edwards. He had 16 first-half points as Minnesota was hanging in there, a little more aggressiveness. But you see SGA just anytime there was a question, he had an answer. Look at the crowd rising for a shot late in the first half. Thunder take an 8-point halftime lead, and then they just dominate, Jay, the third quarter, led, of course, by the MVP.
Well, it was led by the MVP, but also led by their MVP defense because they forced so many turnovers. And this team, historically, as it relates to the NBA playoff postseason, is one of the best to ever do it with total turnover margin, guys.
SGA had 38 points on 21 shots last night. It was a 35-21 quarter
Give me that.
for OKC. We're going the other way here. Case and Wallace throw it up. Chet Holmgren throw it down. And that was all she wrote. SGA again finishing with the 38 at OKC. Another convincing win, 118-103. They take a 2-0 series lead. Neither game has been competitive in the fourth quarter. You see the frustration from Anthony Edwards. Fresh off winning the award, SGA reminds us why he's the MVP. Tying the playoff career high with the 38. It's his 9th game this postseason with 30 points. That's tied for the second most in a single postseason in franchise history, behind only Kevin Durant, who had 11 back in 2014. And Windman, look, I admit it, I picked Minnesota before this series. I forget about shook. I've completely changed my perspective on all of this. But here's watching this postseason. The Thunder, who were the best team in the league all year long, they looked vulnerable to me. We saw moments in Denver, even in the first round, where OKC might have looked a little vulnerable. Minnesota looked so good against the Lakers, so good against Golden State, albeit without Steph Curry. I'm surprised at the way this series has begun. Tell me, you've been there for both games. Why has it gone this way?
Well, it's reasonable for you to say that Minnesota looks so good. They'd won 18 of their last 23 games coming into this. I'm sorry, 18 of 21. They hadn't lost 2 games in a row in 2 months. They had a lot of confidence, but there's something about playing that Thunder defense that is just so demoralizing. Julius Randle absolutely has no space to move. And you look at Ant Edwards. He actually did, I thought, a much better job last night of getting inside and getting good looks, but he can't make an outside shot. And then at the other end, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is so savvy and knows exactly where to get to his spots and getting to the foul line. By the end of the game, the entire Wolves party was extremely frustrated. Extremely frustrated because of their inability to get through that defense. It didn't feel like the end of a thought. What were they frustrated by? Yeah, they were just very frustrated by their inability to get to their game. They can't, for example, Jaden McDaniels, he fouled out midway through the fourth quarter in game 1. Shai had him all tangled up. At one point, he just shoved him. He just shoved him down to the ground. Ant was extremely frustrated. Julius Randle got benched in the fourth quarter because this is a guy who was dominating in the postseason. He averaged 25, 7 and 7 in the last round against the Warriors. He gets benched because he can't get to his spots. He can't get his space. The Wolves are not used to not getting results like this when they go to the Randle had just 6 points. No game. Look, I voted for Lou Dort Defensive Player of the Year. It took me forever to decide between him and Draymond, but I voted for Lou Dort. And in calling people, coaches, players, just to talk about the best defensive player on Oklahoma City, you get different answers. There are people who thought that J-Dub is nearly as qualified. Obviously, the thing is, to me, the tiebreaker was Dort is taking on the best player, best wing offensively
every night, and J-Dub then got off in the second person. But how many great individual defenders, JWill, on one team? At least 4. SGA himself is a terrific defender. And we're not even talking about Holmgren, and we're not talking about Caruso and Cason Wallace. They got that many individual great defenders, 2 all-league, and it could have been 4.
Can I get something off my chest? Because I've been waiting all morning for this. So there was a picture out there floating calling SGA the free throw merchant MVP.
Yeah,
okay, let me just address this, please. This is so big for me. So in 13 postseason games, he has 125 free throw attempts, okay, in a single postseason history. Do you know where that ranks? Over 265 in the history of the NBA. So to all the people out there, just let me give you some context for entertainment purposes. LeBron James, in the same 13-game span, 188 free throws attempted. MJ, 190. D-Wade, 158. Kobe, 140. Bird, 138. Magic, 134. AI, 129. So at the end of the day, same moves, different era, stop crying, play defense.
Amen.
Okay, fair enough. I'm glad that you said that, and SGA has been brilliant. He was brilliant last night. The man who was not brilliant, we opened this series, whatever day that was, Tuesday. So Tuesday morning, we were talking about SGA on one side, Anthony Edwards on the other. Which one is going to sort of grab the mantle? We knew SGA would win the MVP, but which one's going to grab the mantle of being the next great one in the NBA, lead his team to the finals, and maybe win a championship? Wendy, right now, obviously, this has been SGA's series. What has happened to Ant-Man?
Well, the Thunder have basically just said, we are not going to let Ant get to the interior. We are going to put 2 or 3 people in front of him at all times. And so that is why the Wolves have generated so many outside shots. They're basically packing the paint to block Ant Edwards. And what's happened is the Wolves haven't converted those open looks. Ant himself hasn't done it. He's 1 of 9 on threes last night. If he hits his normal percentage, we're having a different discussion. Instead, he takes 28 shots and only makes 12 of them. He was better, but he isn't defiant. And I would say that the Thunder's wager here is they don't think the Wolves as a collective team can carry Ant along. They don't think that he can help him open up the space. 2 games in, that wager has been correct.
How about Ant Edwards?
This is not, Ant Edwards hasn't done this off our last conversation about LeBron calling himself the GOAT. So I just want to preface that for the record.
Right.
But I do feel as if media has coordinated him as he's the face of the league. Yeah. It kind of goes back to why LeBron was like, nobody wants to be that. But also, Anthony Edwards' persona comes with that loud bark. We saw it, it's not Superman, it's not Batman, it's Ant-Man in 5, Lakers in 5, like the whole thing with Shannon, the whole thing with Golden State. The fact that his game, it just seems like there's a drastic difference between SGA and Anthony Edwards. Now, their defense is phenomenal. I'm just talking about, Mike, the maturation, the basketball IQ, the picking of spots. And that's a 3-year difference.
It is.
But to me,
23.
I'm like, MVP, SGA, face. Anthony Edwards can get there, but has a ways to go.
SGA's been at this a little longer and has had playoff failures. And Ant-Man is going through that now.
Yes.
We look at, remember, LeBron and Michael, and I'm just going to start with them, they were in their 7th seasons before they won. Ant-Man, he's not there yet. This experience, well, people forget the failures that even the greatest players had. Kobe, air balls in the playoffs against Utah. Nobody remembers that.
Right.
Because we have no shelf life now, and history means nothing to most people watching sports. They don't even know it. So if the people I just named, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, have playoff struggles, Michael lost to the Pistons 3 years in a row.
Right.
5 games, 6 games, 7 games before beating them. So Ant is going through that right now against what looks like a championship team.
That is the reality, but the alternative reality is that all those guys you just made mention of, until they won it, they weren't as loud.
And they were.
But a different time, though, JWill.
Agreed.
And by the way, he does want to be the face. LeBron can speak for LeBron.
Yeah.
Who is the face of the league? That's just nonsense.
Ant does want that. I respect that. Yeah.
I love the commercials. I love his demeanor, the aura he has. Now, you're totally right. The volume is turned up with Ant-Man, and plus he had a chorus of us proclaiming a year ago, he's not there yet.
The reality of it is we're trying to figure out who is ready to step into the void that will be left behind when LeBron James and Steph Curry, who are a combined 77 years old, make their exit. Anthony Edwards looks the part, right? Everything about him looks the part. So maybe to some degree, we're the ones who are putting them. Well, SGA's game certainly looks the part. All right, so with Joe Fortenbaugh, our betting experts, with us all morning long. And one of the things I enjoy about having you here is you teach me about ways to wager that I had not previously been aware of, and you have a creative one around OKC.
ESPN Bet is going to post this market in a couple hours. We are getting a special preview because of the Greeny clout. You're welcome, America, which is the same thing Greeny says in his mind before signing off every day after the show ends. The bet is very simple. How many more games will Oklahoma City lose before the end of the playoffs? The over-under set at 2.5. The under, interestingly enough, plus 115. So how many games do we see Oklahoma City losing the rest of the way? I'd be looking at the under here. Teddy Atlas, the famous boxing trainer, once said, when you become a champion, you instantly become 30% better. It's about clearing this mental hurdle and finding another level to your game. The Thunder haven't won a championship yet, but after going through the darkness of a 7-game series and winning against Denver, I think they've unlocked another level. I don't see them losing 3 or more times the rest of the way. I'd bet the under there.
Okay, that's a fascinating market. Again, it'll be available today on ESPN Bet.
I'm on fire. It's EDA on ESPN.